Good morning, Yud Aleph Shvat, the 11th day of the 11th month, what we've all been waiting for. Welcome. So, I've always been intrigued by what gives the right to someone to lead other people. Controlling it, for sure not. I don't care how bright the guy is. But leading, the one to give the advice on how to choose leaders is Yisroi, the father-in-law of Moshe, and Moshe took his advice. And the word they use to describe the process of determining authentic leaders is suggested in the words, "You shall also seek out Batatechaza from among all the people, capable men who fear God, trustworthy men who spurn ill-gotten gain. Set these over them as chiefs of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens." So you look for people that don't look for their own personal gain. They value justice. These are called Anshe Chayil, capable men. But the word used to find those people is techaza, to seek out. So an entire welcome. It says Yisroi, Jethro got his name because Yeser Parsha Achas B'Terov Ve'ate Techaza. A chapter in the Torah was added because of him when he gives advice how to find leaders. So the idea of a new Torah is suggested, the Rebbe says, good morning, Ted, in this idea that they added a section in the Torah to in honor of this wisdom that this convert who had tasted every single idolatry on the planet and was an expert, 10,000 hours in each of them. He was an expert in all of them, and he decided that when he met Moshe, it's even before that, I think, because he became a convert on his own. That's like the only one that escaped Moshe's influence, and he did it on his own. And he came up with the process of finding leaders. It's one of techaza. See. What does see mean? So the Rebbe teaches us. Reimez al Haisafa Yeser B'Ter Lasilave. So the fact that you're going to add a parsha, a section in the Torah, because of this righteous convert Yisroi, that is teaching us that in the future to come, there is also going to be a new Torah, Torah Chadasha Mi'iti Teitze. A new Torah will emerge from me, it says. Ba'efen shel Re'iyah Techaza. Good morning, Lynn. This new Torah is experienced in a manner of vision. Techaza means vision. Seek out. When you look for leaders, you look for people, or you look for, to appoint a leader, I guess, is a greater leader. Moshe is the one who's going to do the appointing here. So you appoint leaders. A great leader makes leaders. But he's supposed to have Re'iyah, vision. So it says, V'tam shenamar techaz b'lashon targum, the fact that it uses this unusual word, the Aramaic term in the Torah, which is in Hebrew, Af shalasi lavei tia re'iyah mamish. Even though it could have just said the word re'iyah, vision. Why does it say techaza in Aramaic? We're talking about literal vision, the Rebbe writes. Re'iyah mamish. Why would you have to use a veiled language like Aramaic that's meant to give additional flavor that's from a Gentile source? Lefi she'achshav hu bebchinas hisalmus ve'ikar gilui ba'ifin sharia yelasid lavei. To indicate that it is a transition into a new era, that prior to that, this idea of vision is something that's for the elite. But in the future, it's for the Yechidei Segula, the very VIP. So it's concealed. The idea of having authentic vision, to see things in the proper way, to have perspectives that are genuine, that's something that we're going to be given in the future to come. So it uses an Aramaic term, techaze, to indicate that it's a process. It doesn't start off that way. But in a similar way, the Rebbe continues, we were turned away and we went on this circuitous serpentine path in the desert. We couldn't go through by the land of Plishtim. Rather, we prefer to flirt with Har Seir. Why is that? We're not meant to Plishtim. That's like the end of the Philistine is the final thing. We had to save that for the end. We're foolish through and through. But for some reason, we were told to engage with our good brother Esav, Har Seir, the mountain of Seir. So what ends up happening is the Yud Aleph, the 11 journeys that we were supposed to have to go from Egypt to the Holy Land, became 40 years. Why 40 years? Why not 38 or something? It was 38 in another way of counting. It was 40 years in the desert. They ate man for 40 years, which is another factor here. But why 40? Because Moshe was up 40 days, 40 nights to get the Torah. Each day in God's time is a year. So that was preparation for us to spend 40 years of preparing to enter the land. In order to approach the earthiness of the world, you have to prepare. So they had this very spiritual life for 40 years in the desert to prepare for that. That's as opposed to the direct path, which would have been 11 days. Why 11? Because you have to conquer the 11 crowns of darkness that we spoke about yesterday. You have to engage and be victorious over these 11, and that takes a process. So you go 40 years. You can't attain the wisdom of your master until you've thought about it for 40 years. So they were in the desert for 40 years to fully appreciate the message that they got. So the 10 commandments that they got, they have 40 years to meditate on it, and then they would have had the sort of the preview experience of going into the land. The ultimate is going to be in the future redemption. So you have 11 journeys to get there. Interestingly, that is the Vav-K of God's name, Yud-K Vav-K. You have the first is the 15, Yud-K, and then the latter two letters, Vav-He, Vav and the He, which is 11. That means when things are fully revealed to the lower aspects of divinity as it comes into the latter part, the 11 final numeric values in God's four-letter name, Havaya we call him. So that is supposed to be conquered. Yad al Kes Ka Milchama Amalek. There is a war against Amalek, which is seen as God's throne being incomplete, and all you have now is Yud-K, this force that's transcendent. But to have Vav-K, the latter two letters of God's name, to be relevant and revealed, that's the 11. You have that revelation when you annihilate Amalek. Amalek came from Esav, Har Seir. He's the descendant. He's the flag carrier bearer of Esav. Har Seir is Amalek. When you annihilate this force of Amalek, and maybe we'll have some insight as to what that is, you accomplish, as we said yesterday, mispatel ruach atuma legamri. You totally nullify any inappropriateness in the world, totally eradicate it. That's bringing the 11 into the world. So they needed 40 years to prepare for that. 40 years of integrating it and taking it in, not something imposed, but something they have an opportunity to work on. Then that was something that they did. But mostly it was imposed upon them because they had this spectacular revelation that they went through on Mount Sinai. So they use that inspiration and try and attain it on their own right. They go into the land, and that is not a permanent thing. That was meant to be a temporary paradise or opportunity for paradise, living in our homeland. And then we were intended to be cast away, as we learned yesterday, to make converts, which means to succeed in engaging with the world, elevating all the sparks within it, rectifying divinity trapped within the world. Yud K is, when you get the Yud K, that means you see the truth. You have the experience of the conversion process. Yisro represents that. You have an extra Parsha section given towards Yisro's advice. How do you choose true leaders? He teaches us. It's a process of vision, which will be completely given in the future to come. The new Torah is the vision to see authentically. That is the new Torah. It's not a new words in the Torah. It's a new experience of the Torah. It's the idea to add in the Torah through seeing it, through having a visceral. Seeing is usually associated with feeling or right. To yagia lizman hazeh, to grasp it, to be there, to be present. Shehigianu lizman hazeh. We've arrived at this time. You arrive there by being magia, to be present. So 11, it transcends the 10 Commandments. As we said, you're leaving Mount Sinai to go on to complete this 11-day journey from Egypt to the Holy Land. Is 11-day process. It gets detoured for 40 years to assimilate it. And now we're just going to jump in for a little bit more inside. So we got the idea of Re'iyah. And when we received the Torah and said it, and we continued on a 40-year time to digest it, we got the 10 Commandments there, Keneged Asar Mamaris Vasaris Spheris, which correspond to the 10 sayings with which the world was created, and the 10 spheres that God creates, this configuration of 10. Dargas Halakus Sheyesh La'erech V'Shaychus La'ilam, the aspect, the divinity that has a connection to the physical world, is all with the number to do with the number 10. Kamud Gash Benigla de Torah, as is well known in the exoteric part of the Torah. Halachas benegel and hagas ha'adam la'ilam, to tell you how to behave in this world. Ve'ilu dargas halakus she'ein la'erach v'shaykus la'ilam. However, the experience of divinity that has no connection to the physical world, that transcends that, this is only something that's veiled. You cannot get it directly. However, we're now going through a process towards the future redemption where there's going to be an aspect that's revealed in our Torah that's completely beyond our world. That's pronounced very much in the teachings of the inner aspect of the Torah. As Rashi writes on Shir Shirim, his commentary there, that it's the secret reasons and the concealed treasures. Yedias Alakus, which is the knowledge, the experience of God. So you go from a very behavioral-oriented relationship with Torah. It tells you what to do. And then you go to the secrets within the Torah, which is the new Torah that's being given now, which is Yedias Alakus, the experience, the knowledge of God, which means to connect with it. We learned Basi Lagani, it's the Achdus. You bring the Achdus, the unity from all your mundane experiences, becomes the absolute experience of Atzmos, becoming one with that awareness that God's with you in every single minutiae, all the things in your life. Until the very essence of God is revealed. That's why it comes from iti. From me, it comes from within God speaking. Me'iti daika. Why is it used, this unusual word, me'iti? It should have said mimeni, I suppose. Mi'iti. K'maishakasav ki kulam yadu aisi. Because it says, Yirmiyahu, it says, talking about the redemption, that God will not have to be concealed anymore. Or, you're not going to have to learn from people anymore, because everyone's going to know me. Aisi. It uses the same word as iti is aisi, the same letters, with the extra vowel. Bechinas echad asar yom, which corresponds to these 11-day journeys from Egypt to the Holy Land. I said it a bit funny probably the last time, so this one is more correct. Cherev was the term that got me confused, and it says Echad Asar Yom Mecherev. It was 11-day journeys from Cherev. Shalamayla me Eseres Hadibra Shenitnu. It seems like there was an 11-day journey from Mount Sinai. I pondered that last time, but I didn't do the math yet to figure it out exactly. I know that could have been done in 3 days, and I think Rashi says there that it was an 11-day journey from there. So, but the whole journey itself from Egypt to there was 11 days, so it's still bothering me. But anyways, Antu Chad B'Lei B'Chushban, the 11 is meant to represent this idea that there's a unity that transcends the whole configuration of 10. So you go to the world of Tehu, you go to the source itself, and that's dealing with Aisi, when God says me. So that's a reference to Atzmos, when it's not about God's names, which means the way God interacts with the world, but rather emphasizing the relationship itself. Not what have you done for me lately, but when have we last united in every dimension? So I really like this idea. I should underline this with a pen. Where's my pen? Here it is. That the Yeser, Yisroi, he adds a part in the Torah in the future to come, because it's about seeing. Techazeh, Re'iyah Mamish. But for now it's been veiled, and in the future to come it's meant to be unveiled. Okay, there's a lot of other stuff we could connect this with, but it's a bit nigladic, and I don't know if we're gonna end with some nigla after all that chassidus. I complain to you guys about not enough interaction for bringing. If I'm going to give a night share when I have the opportunity to say l'chaim, we might as well say l'chaim together, and we should make it into a farbringen. Maybe I'll start with a share like usual, but it should break into a farbringen, which means that you guys have ideas, that we're bouncing off each other, and we'll get something done that we couldn't do on our own. So I think farbringens are important, and if we cannot all meet in my study in physical, we should do it digitally. Okay, so put your hologram in the room, like in Star Wars, the first one. Tiny little light. Some tiny hologram of Princess Leia or something, right? I haven't seen that in 40 years. Baruch Hashem, it was so dumb. They become our classic narratives. But anything good about them probably has a holy source. If it's anything classic, probably has some source in holiness, or else how does it last? It should just morph into something better. But then we end up repeating the same narratives all the time. The mythology is so similar in most cultures. I think like 90% of cultures have a concept of a flood. That's fascinating, but we're expecting a new flood, a flood of knowledge in the world, which means experience. Have a great day.